I promise you, your AI automation agency would fail and burn to the ground if you don't pay attention to everything I say in this video, because it's very important that you avoid these mistakes. Now, my previous video uncovered something very important. If you haven't watched that video, go watch it and come back. Essentially, we discovered that AI automation agencies is just a fancy term for an industry that's been around for a long time, known as a BPA specialist, which stands for Business Process Automation Specialist. And I also outlined that a BPA specialist is just a very complicated version of what we're trying to do with AI automation agencies. That's important. Why? Because up until that discovery, we had no idea what this AI automation agency is. We had no idea who we can learn from and whose experience we can actually use as leverage so that we don't make the same mistakes as them. Now that we have a greater understanding of the type of business we're running, we can identify certain mistakes and pitfalls that experts within the BPA industry have experienced. With that newfound information, we could use the thought process of Charlie Munger's inversion thinking rule. He talks about how it's easier to be successful by identifying mistakes and pitfalls that we can make rather than trying to identify opportunities. An example of this rule can come into effect in many areas of our life. An example could be, if you want to learn how to stay in a marriage, you study everything that would make your marriage tear apart and just avoid them at all costs. Now, if we apply that logic to what we're trying to do, build an AI automation agency, it makes it very simple for us to research and analyze the mistakes that people within the BPA specialist industry have made. To ensure we avoid those mistakes, we simply do the opposite, which is exactly what I'm going to cover at the end of this video, so make sure you stay throughout the whole thing. Now, when you're offering an automation service to businesses, your success is tied to how well you understand your clients' processes and what they need to be automated. I can't stress how important it is for you and I to not just assume we know everything about what the customer needs and just shove that thing down their throat. No, you need to keep an open ear, ask them the right questions, make sure you get a great understanding of the whole process, the whole system, where their bottlenecks are, and how you can come in and actually provide value. This is one of the main issues and pitfalls that I found in the BPA industry, and it applies directly to an AI automation agency that we're trying to build. So be careful of that. Now, to get a greater understanding of this, you need to craft your questions in a way that extracts the right information. Questions like, what are the most time-consuming tasks in your business, right? What tasks do you think take up more resources than they actually need? Are there repetitive tasks that you believe could be automated? What problems do you encounter regularly? So those type of questions will help you identify the pain points that your customer is experiencing. On top of that, you need to understand what their desired outcome is. Ask them what success to them looks like. Have something you can measure. Have a metric. Have something that, okay, I've done 1, 2, and 3, and I got this type of result. That means if they complain, if they do anything, you've got track record that you've actually provided value. And you can also use that later on for your future customers. Now that you understand the pain point and the desired outcome, you need to get a greater understanding of what technology they're using, how happy they are with that technology, how much they pay for that technology, and if it's actually worth you coming in and automating a system for them. Maybe they can even do it within their CRM, but they just don't know about it. So getting a greater understanding of, number one, their pain points, number two, their desired outcome, and what technology they're using, you will increase your chances of success dramatically. A second mistake that I found a lot of BPA specialists, a lot of BPA companies actually make is overcomplicating the solution. Many small to medium businesses don't require very complicated solutions. So over-engineering the situation and trying to have an automation that connects to 5 different apps and everything, it may not be the best thing. You got to find a way that makes things very simple and easy for them to use. Because if you use too many apps or too much software, it'll actually increase the price for no reason. So do your research. Whenever you try to implement a solution, don't over-engineer it. Try and make it as simple as possible, because that's your job, to automate things and make things as simple as possible for the client. And that's where simple no-code solutions like Zapier, Go High Level, and a bunch of others can come into play. Find out which one you can use best. Find out which one can provide as much value as possible to the customer so they don't have to pay for multiple solutions, and implement that. Touching on that, a few experts mentioned that a common issue that these BPA specialists actually have is trying to diagnose the issue before they've mapped out the whole situation. So it falls under overcomplicating everything, but whenever you're working with a customer, map out the whole process first, and after that, you actually start working on the solution. You don't do that beforehand because you don't have the full picture of what they're doing and what's required to fix their problems. The third mistake people make in the BPA industry is lack of scalability. So when they're creating a solution, it can't be scaled. Businesses need to grow at the end of the day. As they grow, they need to have software that they use to actually keep up with their demand and keep up with their team and keep up with everything. So when you're designing a solution, when you're making sure you're fixing an issue for a customer, designing a automation process for them, keep in mind that you want to use software and technology that can be used at any scale. Otherwise, they just paid you for nothing. So one thing you got to watch out for is if you're using a no-code solution, make sure that platform or that solution you've created for them can handle increased complexity of data. It's very important. If they grow their business way more than it is now, or if their data system, the processes get more complicated, you need to make sure the platforms you're using for those automations can actually handle that. Another mistake commonly made is ignoring the human element. Sometimes when you're creating these automations, you can get too involved and too attached to actually making this thing as automated as possible. Understand that once it's done, once you've created a product, there's going to be a human, i.e. your client, that actually uses the product. So the less complicated it is, the more user-friendly it is, the more increased chances your customers are going to actually use the automation system that you've created and also get you again for everything else. People don't like to use new things, so if you can make it as simple as possible for the customer to hire you to implement your automation, then you need to make it as user-friendly as possible. Now, the next mistake you can make actually ties in with what I just talked about. So training and teaching the actual customer how to use your automation, how your automation makes their job simpler and easier to do. Obviously, with the AAA business model, you're creating automations at a much simpler level, so you won't have to worry about this too much, but you do still need to communicate and show your customer what you've done, how they can use it, and how it's actually saving them time. And the sixth mistake that's commonly made with BPO specialists and even in normal businesses is failing to measure success. I touched on it before, but establishing clear metrics for success is crucial, both for you and the client. For the client to actually assess what you've done and judge that you've provided the value, to be honest with you, it's actually the most valuable thing for you as an individual to measure and adjust accordingly. Because the more you understand where you lack and where you can improve, the better you can get at providing the service. And the only way you can do that is by measuring and adjusting accordingly. So now I've just outlined the main pitfalls and mistakes you can make whilst running this type of business. The real value in this comes in doing the opposite to make sure we avoid them at all costs. So if you want to avoid misunderstanding the customers and their systems and their processes, listen to what the customer has to say. When you're in the interview with them, when you're onboarding them, shut up and listen to what they have to say. Don't try shoving any solution down their throat. Ask them specific questions to extract the information you need and listen. Very, very important. On top of that, you want to maintain excellent communication. Whenever you're working with a customer, you have to communicate. Every time you've got an update, update them. Every time you've made improvement and progress, update them on what's happening. Over communicate rather than under communicate. You want to make sure you're at the front of their mind all the time. Emphasize the human element. Keep in mind that your client is the end user and you want to make it as simple as possible for them. Your goal is to make life as easy as possible for them. Fourth, design scalable solutions. Whenever you design this automation process for your customer, make sure it is scalable. Number 5, provide a comprehensive training and support. So do everything you can to answer all the questions your customer has. Make sure you teach them and you go through everything with them. Make a Loom video, make anything you need to make sure that it's very simple for them to hire you and to get you to work for them. And last but not least, always measure your success and adjust based on the data you collect. So whenever you work with a customer, have a journal. Note down all the good that happened, all the bad that happened, all the inefficiencies in you providing that service. It's important you do this because the more you do it, the better you'll become at providing the service, which means you'll provide more value to the customer and you can charge more and they will tell everyone they know about you. Okay, so now here's where the real value comes in when breaking this down the way we did. We've identified the mistakes we need to avoid. We identified what we need to do to avoid those mistakes, which is the opposite of the potential mistakes or pitfalls. However, doing the opposite of each of the mistakes we need to avoid has a skill attached to it. And that's exactly what I'm going to cover in the next video. I'm going to talk about all the skills you need to be successful in creating an AI automation agency. On top of that, I'm going to make sure I break it down in the sequence that you need to learn these skills in. So it's basically a step-by-step guide on what skills you need to learn, a sequence you need to learn them in, and where you can learn them. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. It's enough for this video. Over and out.